right. So here we are at the beginning of the college football season. We've just moved the college football CSFL College Football League over to the new Prep to Pros Football League. We'll be running a pro league concurrent to this college league. But we're getting ready. Just finished up training camp for the teams, and it's time to look at how everyone's going to go to start the season. Looks like we're going to run through the top 25. Probably, we'll probably bounce down a little outside of the top 25 as well. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the CPU controlled teams. But we are going to take a look at the human controlled top 25, and we'll kind of jump down and probably take a look at some of the receiving votes teams as well. So that being said, let's start with Utah. We're going to go take a look at them. They're going to be running into replacing their quarterback this season, but that shouldn't be a big deal. They've recruited a lot of talent over the last couple seasons. They should be solid at QB. They've got a few guys that have played well in spot minutes. We expect the starting job's going to come down to Sandoval or Taggart. Looks like they're going to be redshirting a couple incoming freshmen, Clifford Lopez and Edward Billings, out of Michigan. Christopher Beebe, Utah's first 5-star recruit, out of Vegas, Nevada. He'll be getting the main reps at running back. I mean, he can do everything: power, speed, agility, hands. He does everything the right way, hits holes the right way, runs passing routes the right way. He's just great. And we expect BB to be playing on Sundays. We'll see where he ends up getting drafted. Running backs have been really deep, but he could have an opportunity to maybe play some fullback or even wide receiver in the NFL, as he's just got talent. So he really could play almost anywhere. Other than that, they're deep. John Miller comes back his junior season. He should be stellar. He's led Utah the last 2 years in rushing, actually more than BB. And then they've got, 3 guys that can catch passes out of the backfield. Timothy Dobson, who hasn't gotten any reps for Utah, but they are very high on him. Great speed, decent strength, good size, and decent hands. Utah likes those handsy backs out of the backfield. Bruce Wells will be back, and he caught a lot of passes out of the backfield this past season. What's going on here? All right, it's all buffering. Anyway, back to Bruce Wells here. Bruce Wells, he caught a lot of passes out of the backfield for Utah this past season. 18 catches for over 400 yards, 8 touchdowns. We expect him to play a lot of that same role again this year. They've got great line play, good fullbacks. They've got speedy, strong Roberto Turner. He'll be getting the main reps along with some incoming freshmen. Good line play. Utah's solid at tight end. They've got Fitch. Herman's a senior. Herman, I believe, he's a former transfer out of UCF. So he's out of Florida. Utah's hit Florida hard in recruiting over the last 4 or 5 years, and they've picked up a lot of solid guys out of the state. Some decently lower ranked guys. They pulled some good transfers, but Herman should have a good year. John Fitch, he should be great as well. He had an incredible training camp, and he should be great in the passing game again. Caught 17 passes this past season for 219 yards, a touchdown. But Herman got the majority of the minutes. We'll probably see some reps increase for Fitch, as he was just stellar in camp. So, he really should be an effective weapon. Utah likes to utilize that 2 tight end set a lot, so he should get plenty more opportunities this season to catch some passes. Big frame, 6'6" guy, pretty strong at the tight end position, and just great routes. We expect Fitch to be the main tight ends after Herman graduates this season. And both those guys honestly should be getting some looks in draft pool as they come up. Wide receiver, another strength for Utah. Petway's back, Yee's back. Both guys caught a lot of passes. Petway leads the attack. They've got five freshmen coming in. Looks like they're going to redshirt a few of them. 5-star Chris Miles, Matthew Sanchez, Jared Alley. And then looks like Hernandez has gotten some good play and spot minutes over the last couple seasons. Waldron's a former transfer. Came from San Diego State. And he should get some reps along with the incoming freshman, Ray Smith, and Ricardo Hammond. A lot of people really excited about him. He's the first player I've ever seen in my history of playing this game that has come in as a fan favorite. So we'll see if he can live up to the hype. Cornerback play should be strong again for Utah. It's going to be Platt's senior year. Platt's, he's a littler guy, 5'9", 172, but he plays bigger than his frame, that's for sure. Forced 5 fumbles last season, 17 passes defensed, a couple interceptions, held receivers to under 50%. He was over, just under 50%. Yep, just under 50%. Started 12 games, was a little hurt, but still came in and threw in 50 tackles in Utah's national championship run last season. And he's a former recruit out of West Virginia. Massachusetts, went a season at West Virginia and then transferred to Utah. And has been main guy in the rotation since he transferred over for his sophomore season. Great linebackers again from Utah. We expect Caps to kind of keep his all conference and Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year play continuing. He's been a real surprise for Utah. He was kind of an afterthought recruit. Came in 2208. Just not highly sought after out of North Carolina. But he's been great. Had a decent freshman season. Started a bunch of games. Started half the games last season. But he rotated around, and he played well in all of his reps. 69 tackles. Close to leading the team in tackles, held receivers to under 50%, receiving, forced 3 fumbles, 5 sacks, 5 passes defense, 12 tackles for loss. He kind of was just all over the field last year for Utah and was significant in their national championship run. 30% receiving, 2 pass defenses, a sack, tackles for loss, 12 tackles in those 3 games for Utah. Then they have sophomore Harold Harding. They're bringing in, they've got Kyle Simpson, who rotates between strong safety and linebacker. Utah's going to be replacing some defensive tackles, but they had a pretty solid crop of guys, and they're really high on John Gonzalez. He's a recruit out of New Jersey. He had a solid camp, really strong, just great play out of that defensive tackle, and so far in camp, Utah's been really high on him and expect him to get starting reps in his first season. Then defensive end, John O'Brien, who was kind of, he's the other Pac-12 All-Conference, All-American. He won Defensive Player of the Year and Defensive Lineman of the Year this past season. John O'Brien, former converted linebacker. He played 2013. He played their starting left outside linebacker position. Played well there, but Utah saw something in him and moved him to defensive end, and he's just been a monster. Led the entire country in sacks this past season. 20 tackles for loss, 63 tackles. He was just a monster. He'll be a monster again this season for Utah. Along with Victor Frost on the other side, who's quick. He's 6'4", 227. Great strength. You should see him in the weight room. He just goes nuts, but he's fast. I mean, he's always leading up near the front in those 40-yard drills, wind sprints. He's just quick, can run. Former track star out of high school. Then we've got free safety. Utah's really high on David Garcia. They expect him to have a big year. He kind of played behind senior Joseph Barrera this past season. Splitting time at that free safety position, but he should get more reps this year. And he had 49 tackles, 13 passes defense, an interception, and he was able to hold receivers under 50% as well from that free safety position, which is no easy feat. Strong safety, Utah's going to be bringing back the platoon of Harder and Jacoby. Jacoby also plays some time at right outside linebacker for Utah, so it kind of depends on the set, and he's their main leader on the defense. They'll be replacing King Louis Crittenden at kicker, so we'll see how well the kicking game continues with likely Arthur Jackson getting the main reps in the kicking game for Utah. Delbert Johnson back again, solid punter. And not much to say about Utah. They should be competitive depending on their quarterback play. They're going to be replacing their short yardage guy, Christopher Carroll, who was kind of their running quarterback, and that those reps are probably going to fall to Taggart, who's a former 5-star, but he just hasn't gotten an opportunity to play, sitting behind Bravo. And last year, Sandoval got all of the backup minutes. The season before, while Sandoval was redshirting, Billings got all the minutes. And now Utah's got Billings on the red shirt. So we probably expect Sandoval to get the start, but Taggart might get an opportunity. Coaches have really liked how he's improved his accuracy. That was the main knock against him, pretty much since his freshman season. He just misses a lot of those easy throws that he shouldn't miss. But he's got a big arm and a cannon for an arm. Decent sized guy, pretty strong, but he's got decent speed. But Utah traditionally plays, more of that drop back style passing game. So they've been adding those wrinkles over the past couple seasons, and we'll see how they work out going forward. So moving on, let's take a look at the number 2 team coming in, and that should be Florida State, who faced Utah in the championship this past season. Holding their own. They lost 2 games last year. Ended up 14-2 on the season. They should be right up there again. They've been a perennial, or I guess an annual playoff contender and championship contender. So they should be right up there again. But they are replacing a couple guys. They're replacing Schrader out of the backfield. But they've got great. They've always had great running backs, so we don't expect to see much of a drop-off there. They're bringing Richardson back at quarterback. He should get a lot of the reps. Solid arm, but he's quick out of the backfield. He can move. He's big. He's hard to bring down. But they play a lot of, Armstrong will get some reps. Might even see 3. We see that a lot out of those Florida schools, these 3-2 quarterback systems. They're good. They'll be bringing back William Miller, who played mainly behind Schrader the last 2 seasons. He might get a lot of the main reps now. Went for 946, average of 5 a carry last season. Had a stellar freshman year. He should be good. McLean, I mean, he's just a dream. Fast, agile, strong. The only knock on him really is he's just maybe slightly undersized, but he's still got decent size, 5'10", 189. Good hands, good speed, good agility. I mean, he's everything you ask for out of a running back. Good fullback play. Jeremy Gorin, decent speed, really strong. That's kind of the main thing, and that's kind of what always Florida State prides themselves on is good blocking, good solid tacklers, good fundamentals, really good line play, and that's going to continue. And we'll see how that kind of dual threat passing games works out for them this season. See if they can win that ACC championship again and continue their run in the playoffs as they have, and maybe get over the top. Last season was both Utah and Florida State's first time in the championship, and Utah came out on top in that one. But Florida State's gonna have a solid defense, good offense. They have decent receiver play. At the same time, good size, good strength, good blocking. That's like they like to do in the running game. They like to use those strong receivers to get them that little bit extra blocking on those short passing throws in the option game. Bubble screens, all that sort of stuff. Florida State also picked up a couple transfers out of Utah in the transfer portal this season, so we'll see maybe over these, they're going to be ineligible this season, but they brought over Davidson, who was from South Carolina. He wanted to go back home and be closer to home, but Florida State got a really stellar player in Davidson. Great agility, great speed, good size. He can play cornerback. He can play strong safety. I mean, he really could play anywhere on the defense. He's just a great all-around player. And they also brought over Lon Galbraith, who came over with Davidson. Galbraith has been kicking around the Utah system for a few seasons, but he's just seen himself get passed by younger players too many times, and he just hasn't gotten those starting reps. He's played at strong safety. He's played at linebacker. Utah lined him up at defensive end a little bit, but he's just never ended up getting those reps. And he feels like he should get more of an opportunity than he's gotten. And maybe he'll get that at Florida State. We'll see. After he goes through his transfer year and sits out, see how his training goes, and maybe he'll be one of their main linebackers or safeties or defensive end this next season. But outside of that, great, sure, strong linebackers. That's what you're going to expect out of Florida State. Great tackling, sure tacklers. They get a paw on you, you're going down, that kind of thing. Defensive tackle, solid play. They've got Janikowski and Price, but we expect all of these guys to get reps. Janikowski and Price, they tend to wind down a little bit as the games goes on, but you've got Corey Sides, great speed, strength, good variety for his size. I mean, he's the biggest lineman. Defensive tackle they've got at 310, but he also moves and is a pretty sure tackler for that position. Their trenches are going to be solid. They've got Moody, who's their quickest defensive end. He'll probably get a lot of the main reps, but again, defensive end, we expect to see all those guys rotate through that defensive end position. They've got Salmon. He's going to be their main guy at free safety. And overall, it's kind of the same thing with Utah. Not much to be said. Florida State's going to be competing again. They've got a really talented squad, a lot of depth. But they've got a lot of senior leadership on the team, especially in the quarterback position. So we'll see how that translates. Utah's still got a lot of young players, but they did it with a lot of young players this past season. So moving on to number 3. And that's going to be Oklahoma. They've been competitive. They've kind of fallen out of playoff contention the past few seasons. But they've always got a talented squad as well. They're bringing in another solid recruiting class. They've got great QB play. They've put several QBs into the pro league. Waylon's back, and Waylon was really good last season. Great play out of the running backs. Goodwin's just kind of a freak. Really, really strong. Good bruiser. And then they diversify that a little bit with the speed of Franco. So they're just going to be solid. Good solid line play all the way throughout. You're gonna expect to come away with some bumps and bruises after a game with Oklahoma, but they just really haven't quite lived up to their expectations the past couple seasons. So let's see if they can get back up on top of the Big 10 this year, or Big 12 this year, and take that crown again. Wide receiver play, solid, good speed, good size, great tight end play. That's just what you're going to expect. Lots of NFL caliber talent on Oklahoma's squad. Probably their biggest weakness is going to be depth at linebacker. Maybe a little bit in the secondary. Their depth is a little less prevalent as you get over onto the defense than it is on the offense, but they are solid in the trenches. They'll be good on the D line. But you start to worry when you get into the corners, into into the linebackers. But other than that, it's Oklahoma football the rest of the way. Layers of talent on layers of talent. Not sure if I'm going to call them, the winner of the Big 12 just yet. There are other talented squads, Baylor, Texas. Texas, it's been rumored that they're going to be switching to a little bit more of a running attack than their kind of air raid they've been running the last few seasons. They had kind of a disappointing year last year as they were expecting Lester Waite's senior year to be, kind of the one where they could get over the hump and get that conference crown and maybe get into the playoffs, but it just didn't quite work out that way for Texas. So Oklahoma, I mean, they're kind of the same deal. They've been expected to do well every season, so let's see if they can live up to their lofty number 3 ranking coming in, as they haven't quite put up those kind of expectations over the last couple seasons. 9-5, 10-4. I mean, they won the championship in 2012, but then they've been 3 seasons of 10-4, 10-4, 9-5. Just a little bit behind the 8 ball of where they've been expected. So maybe now that those crops of recruits, after that national championship season, they're going to be juniors and seniors this year. So, maybe they really can pull it off and get that Big 12 crown and get into the playoffs and maybe repeat, where they were at 2010, 2012. They got in the playoffs, and then they won the championship in 2012. But yeah, just last couple seasons have been a little disappointing, inexplicable losses coming off Sugar Bowl wins. They've been in it every season for the past 3, but they just haven't been living up to expectations quite. And now Whalen's a senior, so hopefully they can take advantage of him. Before he did come back for his senior year, he could have left and gone to the NFL, but that quarterback crop in the draft was pretty deep, so he decided to come back. So we'll move on to number 4. So number 4, we've got Auburn. Last year, they were a little disappointing. We'll go take a look at their history before we talk about their expectations for the year a little bit. But they were coming off back-to-back championships, and then last year kind of just fell back a little bit. 16-0. They're the only squad that's won 3. They won one in 2010, 2013, 2014. Obviously, they're going to be back there again. But last season was their first season not in the playoffs in 5 seasons. So, we'll see if they can continue doing their thing, and if that was kind of just a blip on the radar, or if it signifies a trend, maybe they're going to kind of... There's been a lot of competition emerging from the SEC over the last few seasons. So they couldn't hold that crown forever, obviously. So they fell back a little bit this past season. So let's take a look at what they're doing this year and see if they can pull it back up, get back into the playoff conversation. They should. They've had solid recruiting classes every year. They're going to be a stellar squad, and they're one that nobody looks forward to game planning for. All right, so they've got a few options at quarterback. They've got four 4 sophomore QBs that are all going to compete for the main job. You know, some guys have weaker arms and are faster, so they might actually end up running, you know, kind of a lot of what we're seeing at the Florida schools and the SEC is kind of a couple more 2 quarterback systems and get a few guys some reps. We'll probably see Webb play a lot, Selby play a lot, but you know, who knows? The main reps could go to Reeves. They've got a lot of talented guys, but they don't really have that Swiss Army knife do everything quarterback. Probably the closest they have is Reeves. You know, decent speed. He's got an arm. He's intelligent, good accuracy, plays the position decently well, makes good decisions. Not very agile, but he's got a little bit of speed to him. He's the fastest quarterback on their roster, and Auburn likes that short and heavy power run game. So expect they're going to continue pounding it with Webb, who I believe he got a lot of reps this past season. Nope, he didn't get any reps. So he's coming in sophomore. He's coming in as a sophomore. Or no, Webb's the QB. Who was it? Who got all the reps last year? So maybe Blair. You know, Blair got a lot of reps. He's going to be a junior. Started half the games last year. You know, he'll probably get a lot. He'll probably be the main guy this year. Good, decent size. They don't have the most, you know, again, it's another situation of their like faster backs aren't quite as agile. You know, so they're going to kind of, they'll probably be running playing time through 4 or 5 backs throughout the season. Good line play, good blocking from the fullback position. They should be solid there. Great line play all the way throughout, as most of the top teams tend to have. They've got great tight ends. Reeves, a former wide receiver, so he can kind of play both positions pretty well, even if he is a little undersized at tight end, but they mainly utilize Reeves out of the passing game. Well, they will. He caught 8 passes this past season, but wide receiver, that's another spot that, you know, they've got some speed, but they don't pass a ton, so you know, they run out of power formations a lot, so 1 or 2 wide receivers is usually pretty good. And they've got Hummel, who's great. He would start anywhere in the country. And then Bueno. You know, both of those guys should be solid, and then they can swing in Ward, Staten, Robinson, the rest of the way. Cornerback play is going to be solid. They're not incredibly deep, you know, only 5 deep there. But they should be fine. A lot of these guys, you know, decent endurance, you know, and they probably have some safety guys that could play in spot minutes over at corner. But that's really the only spot of worry. There's a lot of air raid offenses starting to emerge, so cornerbacks are really kind of at a premium. And Auburn's not super deep on the corners, but linebacker they'll be solid. Lackey, who's you know, he was a well sought after recruit, number 10 recruit in the country. Not this past cycle, but the 2015 cycle. Came in as a freshman, started 13 games, 73 tackles, 9 tackles for loss. You know, he should be great. Quick, sure tackler. Great, decent size and strength. They've also got Schneider. They've got. I hate when the game does that. They've got Hartman. Great linebackers. Solid play in the trenches. They might have some questions at the end. They've got some speed, decent strength there, but they're not elite. They've got some good DNs, but none of them are really truly elite. But they should get solid play out of that position because they do have a lot of elite players at defensive tackle and linebacker that teams are going to have to account for. Safety, same thing. Old Cletus here is probably going to get a lot of the reps this next season. He had a decent freshman and sophomore year. They brought in some freshmen at safety, but none of them really look like anything better than Harris. And that's another thing. We might end up worrying a little bit about some of their depth at free safety against some of the better teams. Strong safety, they'll be solid. They've got Rose and Olivia coming back. Rose is quick, decent strength, good hands, sure tackler. A little bit undersized at the strong safety position. But Olivia can come in there for a lot of those reps and fill in some of the blanks. So expect kind of a dual strong safety platoon out of Auburn. If I'm honest, though, I don't think Auburn's going to be the one that comes out of the SEC on top. I think they're going to compete and do well. But I do think they're going to drop a couple losses. I've looked at some of the talent of some of those other SEC schools, and there's really some talented squads down there. So their power run game is always good, though. Their defense is always good. So the game planning at Auburn's always solid. So that could be enough to overcome some of the shortcomings that they've got in a few spots. Lack of depth at corner. A little bit of wide receivers a little bit shaky. They don't have much at the free safety position behind Cletus. And so, we'll see. A lot of it depends on injuries, but I do think we'll see Auburn up in playoff contention. They might drop one or two games. They might get that kind of coveted position in the really any of the power leagues. But in the SEC especially, you don't end up playing for that conference championship game, so you don't have to risk another loss. You end up in that third position, and you can kind of just sit out the conference championship and don't have to risk getting jumped with a loss in that championship game. So anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on from there. We'll go take a look at the number 5 team. So number 5, we've got Iowa, and they're under new management. Someday came in last season and did pretty well managing them, getting them back up to kind of the Rouse level. As Iowa's history, they were in the playoffs. They kind of were one of the surprise teams for their first 4 seasons in the league. They never got into the final, but they were in the Final Four a couple times. Lost actually, they did go to the final in 2012, and they lost to Oklahoma. That's right. Got into the Final Four 2 other times, and then they're on back-to-back seasons, 10-3. If I remember right, nobody was really guiding them in 2014. and then someday came in for the 2015 season, and it looks like he might be able to return him to the playoffs. Maybe this is the season. They take that Big Ten crown and get into the playoffs. But they've been solid. They win their bowls. They've been competitive in the playoffs. They've just been a tough out for a lot of teams, and we expect that to continue. So they haven't been running quite the same running attack that they were running when Rouse was running the squad, but they do have, as always, solid play out of those positions. They kind of run a similar scheme to Auburn often, or historically. So we'll see kind of how they go about it this year. They've got, let's see, Camarillo. He'll probably be the starter, I would expect. He'll probably get the main reps. He's a solid guy, great intangibles. He plays the position well. Great arm, decent strength, decent speed. He played well. Started 3 games last season. Threw 20 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Solid, and we expect him to be one of the top quarterbacks in the country this season. For his junior year. And then they've got a lot of seniors at the running back position. I want to say this guy's related to Rouse. So he's quick, speedy, strong. He's kind of in that mold, the Eddie Griffin mold. Eddie Griffin is currently playing in the pro league. For the Saints, kind of that same mold, small, little guy, but strong, quick. Those were kind of the running backs that Rouse liked, and that's Eddie Griffin, and he's had some success in the pro league, and so we'll see if Rouse makes it in himself, but he should get a lot of reps. But again, we're probably going to see, Culpepper get a lot of reps. Probably 3 deep in running backs getting carries in this offense for Iowa. Decent line play, but they've got some holes at guard. They don't have the strongest guys at their guard position. So we'll see how things work out. They'll be able to. Whoa, this guy's really that bad at pass blocking? No. Oh, it's those aren't lining up right in correctly anymore. But yeah, they're not quite as strong as they used to, as they need to have them, especially for that kind of power running game Iowa likes to run. They've got decent tackles that should help, but they do need to address kind of their guard position a little bit. Just not the strongest guys, so we'll see if that creates some holes. They do like to stick on the outside in the running game, so maybe they can get to the outside, and but there are some quick defensive tackles in the Big Ten that might be able to bust through some of those holes left by their guards. So with that, that might be the difference of 1 or 2 losses for Iowa. Just their guard play, especially if they start dealing with injuries. They don't have a lot after Aker. Aker, he's their strongest lineman. He started 4 games last year, 49 pancakes. He didn't allow any sacks, but there's going to be a tall ask for the entire line. But tackle and center, Iowa's definitely strong. Always solid tight ends that are strong, good hands, good size. That's kind of what they like to see over there in Iowa. Same thing with receivers. They like handsy receivers that can catch the ball, decent size. They play a little bit more of a possession attack with their passing game, but they're going to be solid at wide receiver as well. They're not all quite as fast as a lot of receivers we see on a lot of other squads. They do have Walsh. Well, actually, I guess I take that back because Walsh is quick, great hands, tall, 6'4", 202. He'll get a lot of reps. He caught 52 balls last season for 821 and 7 touchdowns. He'll get a lot again. They're going to be solid wide receiver. Pretty solid on offense outside of the guard position. They don't have a lot of depth after Camarillo at quarterback. They could kind of do a fill it in by committee situation, but depth will be a concern if Camarillo goes down, and we definitely expect Iowa's going to be looking for a quarterback in this next recruiting cycle. Defensive tackle, they've got William Torres, solid, strong. They're going to have good play out of the defensive tackle position. They're a little more iffy on D end. They've got Clarence Clausen, who should be pretty solid. He doesn't have a lot of experience, though, and he's a sophomore. So that might be a question mark for him as well. They're probably also going to be starting a freshman in Holcomb. So that's another spot. Luckily, they've got good defensive tackle play that, maybe can compensate a little bit because they're defensive ends. They don't have a lot of depth, and it's definitely their biggest question mark. Free safeties are going to be good. They bring back speedy, strong free safety. Free safeties, well, I guess not strong, but decent hands, decent tackling, good size, good speed. They'll be able to cover any of the tight ends, any of those slot receivers, any of the main guys coming over to the middle. I mean, they'll be able to cover space nice and easy. Strong safety, they have solid play, but the only question mark, they're definitely going to be able to play between the boxes, but the only question I've got is whether these guys are going to have enough speed to here we go, fix the thing so I can read the boxes correctly. So the strong safety, yeah, I mean they don't have a lot of speed at strong safety, and that's going to be the question mark. Phillips should get the main reps, but if he goes down, that could be an issue. Kicker and punter, they should be pretty solid, at least in the punting game. Kicking game's going to be a little bit of a question mark, but I think Pedersen was pretty solid he's only gotten a few reps. Pedersen's a new kicker, question mark. Don't know how that's going to go. Did Williams get all the main reps? Yeah, Williams got the main punting reps last year. He was solid in the punting game, so they should be all right on special teams. Hard to say whether I'd consider Iowa the top team in their conference. There's still Penn State. Michigan's been on the upswing. Who else? Wisconsin's over there. Let's go look at their conference. if this game would ever load. So, I mean, they are in the better conference to be in terms of emerging. Of the teams on that side, maybe Minnesota could sneak up, maybe Wisconsin, but Iowa should be solid in the West to at least get to the conference championship. But Penn State or Michigan might have a little more talent on their squads. But we'll get to them here in a few. I'm going to take a short break before continuing. So I'll put up the rest of the rankings here. So we're going to be moving on to Miami next. Miami has been kind of a disappointment. They've had the talent to be successful, but they just haven't quite. Last year they were on an upswing for a couple seasons, having great recruiting classes, and then last year kind of just fell off a little bit and didn't quite do as well as was expected. I mean, they were expected to be a top 10 team and in the playoffs last season, competing for the championship, competing with Florida State, and they didn't do either. So we'll take a peek at them when we're back. Going to take a short 2-minute break. All right. We're back to take a look at Miami. We'll take a look at their schedule first. I mean, they've got a grueler starting out the year at Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's replacing a quarterback and quite a bit of talent. So we'll see. They've got at Louisville, at Virginia Tech, Florida State at home this season, so that should help. But they're at Penn State. They've just got a tough slate. They're playing a lot of good teams, a lot of good out of conference games. So if they can win, they can afford a couple losses and still make it into the playoffs. But if they can win a lot of these games, and pull out a couple against those top tens, they could lose and still be in the top 10. So last year, they were kind of on an upward trajectory. 8-5 in 2013, 9-5 last year. Everyone was expecting 2015. They had one of their most talented rosters that they've had ever. And, they ended up kind of a disappointing 7-6. Their offense didn't quite work out the way they hoped. But, a lot of people are high on them again. They've got a really talented squad. They do put a lot of guys into the pro league. They've got the talent. They just need to get it all performing and working together. So taking a look at their squad, they've got solid quarterback in Murillo. He'll probably get the majority of the starting reps. He didn't have a great sophomore great season starting as a redshirt freshman last year. But he's got a little more experience, especially in big games. And that should translate pretty well. They've also got Michael Evans, who might compete for that starting job. It's hard to say which direction it'll go, but everyone in Miami definitely thinks it's down to Murillo and Evans. Evans is a little bit older. He's not quite as skilled of a quarterback. He's not a great leader. He's not going to lead your team. And he struggles to make some of his reads. But when he makes them, he delivers the ball perfectly. He can make the long throws. He's not quick. He's a traditional drop back passer. He can see over the line at 6'4". And he plays the position pretty well, even if sometimes he kind of he gets his head stuck on one receiver kind of thing. Running backs, they're solid at Miami. Gates should see time. Ramirez should see time. Klesser should see time. And they kind of, it's a 1-2-3 punch. They've got bigger guys, smaller guys, stronger guys, faster guys. So they should be solid in the backfield or out of the backfield running the ball. The only one that can really catch passes for them is Stanley Ramirez. So you probably expect to see a few catches out of the backfield for him. But he's a redshirt freshman, so we'll see how where they put him on the depth chart once we get to opening day. Their line play is solid. They've got decent run blocking, good pass blocking guards. Tackle plays solid, same thing. They've got guys that can pass block, guys that can run block, strong, big linemen, which is necessary playing down there, banging up against a lot of those southern schools, a lot of those Florida schools, especially. Florida State, especially. Their big D line, their big strong D line. Linebackers and defensive tackles. If they're ever going to have a hope of pulling out one in that rivalry, that's where it's going to have to happen, is the trenches, and they do a good job of that, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Tight end play, another solid position for Miami. On offense, they really should perform better than they have the last couple seasons. So let's see if they can kind of right the ship this year. And get some of these guys really performing. They should have a decent crop of wide receivers. None of them are kind of your ideal perfect receiver. It's either bad hands or bad agility or not quite fast enough or not quite, they are all pretty sizable. The entire crop except one over 6 feet. But it's another question of, can the guys catch the ball when the ball gets to them? Are they fast enough to beat some of those fast corners and safeties out of the slot? Can they run those perfect routes? It remains to be seen. We'll see how that goes. That's kind of been the sore spot for Miami is the wide receivers over the last few seasons. They're on defense. Their corners are going to be solid, quick, agile. They'll probably play a decent amount of zone as their fastest corner is Sasser. But behind him, the rest of the guys are fairly slow. And that could be a big factor in why they were losing some of those games is just, their corners, while talented and smart and play the position well, a lot of them, they just can't keep up with some of those faster receivers. Linebacker, they've got solid linebacker play. Pretty solid defensive tackle play. Big, strong guys all throughout. Deep at the defensive tackle position. With Matthew Young, who's kind of the leader of their defense. He's back for his senior season. We expect him to be playing in the NFL, and hopefully he can improve on his numbers as a full-time starter. He started 4 games last season, played in 9, spent a portion of the year injured. So let's see if he ends up getting the main starting reps this season and how he can do. But he's a solid defensive tackle. Big, strong. He's their biggest guy, 6'4", 314. Good strength, good tackling. He's probably their fastest defensive tackle and most sure-handed tackler as well. Defensive end, solid there as well. They've got Chet Franco, who's just kind of a monster over there at the end position. He should improve in his junior season. He came in as a linebacker for Miami, and they converted him to a defensive end. And I mean, he's been solid. He's got decent enough strength. Little undersized for a D end at 233, but a lot of these teams these days are looking for those edge rushers to speed around the edge and just get a paw on that quarterback. And Franco, I mean, if he touches the quarterback's going down. I mean, he gets a hand on him, he's going to bring him down. He's sure-handed at the defensive end position, and he's got decent quickness. So he should be their main guy. Rotating, they've got Wild kind of on the other side, and he's another converted player. He's converted from strong safety. Good leadership. And then they've got their traditional defensive ends in Walker, Smith, and Glaze. And in fact, I think this name looks familiar. Oh, that's right. Gregory Glaze. So he's a transfer out of Utah as well, which is the team I control. So that gives me some interest. He must have transferred last season, so he hasn't gotten any playing time, but it looks like he's progressing pretty well. Great leadership. He can play linebacker or defensive end. He converted to a defensive end at Utah, but he's quite a bit undersized for defensive end, but he doesn't really have the speed to play linebacker. So we'll see how or if he gets utilized in Miami's pass defense, but he'll get backup reps for sure. But they're 8 deep at defensive end, so probably not going to play a lot. unless there's a lot of injury for Miami. But that's another spot. That's another bright spot for Miami. Defensive tackles, a bright spot. Linebackers, a bright spot. I mean, their defense looks like it should be pretty good. If they can get decent play out of their offense and their passing game, their wide receivers, they should compete for a solid year. But the question mark really is just, can their QB Murillo perform, or is he just going to be kind of below average as he was last season? Because their defense is solid everywhere. So as long as they can kind of move the ball and keep their defense fresh and off the field, then Miami should improve on their 7-6. Until I see it, I'm not going to put them in my personal top 10. I'd probably put them in the lower half of the top 25 until I see them do better than a 5-loss season, as that's kind of what their history is five losses, improving on the wins, but they only have one 10-4 season. They come in as a top 10 squad every single year, but a lot of it's probably got to do with their quarterback play. They haven't been able to get a lot of consistent quarterbacks coming in and playing that position for them. So if they can get a solid, maybe a 5-star recruit, maybe they can find a guy deep down in the ranks that can come in and take that spot for them, because Murillo's still a question mark. His arm's not big, so Miami has to play a ball manager system, but they've got to be able to at least have that threat of the passing game. So if they can do that, I expect they could win 9 or 10 games, but I don't think, until they prove me wrong, I don't think that Miami will be a playoff contender this season. They do have the talent everywhere except maybe wide receiver and quarterback. Especially if Murillo goes down. If Murillo goes down, they're kind of they've got Evans, who's pretty solid, but he's not gonna be able to take a game over for you, and you need leadership elsewhere. Murillo's kind of their guy, but he needs to take a step up from his sophomore season. But yeah, I do expect to see at least 9 wins out of Miami this season. So with that, we'll move on to the next squad here. And I'm going to kind of skip them. Penn State, they're worth talking about. They're a talented squad. They have been every year. They've been in the playoffs. That's kind of at least what I'll do for the CPO teams. I won't really run through their rosters, but we'll take a look at their history real quick. So they made the playoffs. They won a championship back in 2011. Fell off for a couple years. They've been in the playoffs the past couple, but they didn't get out of the first round. So we'll see. They are under AI leadership at the moment, so that's a tough one. It's tough to say that they'll be a playoff team, but we'll see. They did it last year. I think they were under AI leadership last year, and they made the playoffs. So they should be again. They've got a talented squad. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next human squad, which is gonna be LSU. And I think LSU is also under new leadership of late. I think they fell off a little bit this past season from where they were. Yeah, they didn't make the playoffs last season, ended up with 4 losses. After getting to the final 2 seasons in a row, getting into the Final Four in 2012, making the playoffs in 2010. They've consistently had top recruiting classes. So they were under, they weren't kind of being managed for a bit. So I think under new management, from Hay 1-2-3, they should be pretty good. They've got the talent. Obviously, they're on back-to-back top recruiting classes. They've got a monster in their quarterback position. Albert Means is just he plays the position well. He's got a good arm. He's accurate. He's smart. He can move around in the pocket. He can move out of the pocket. He can avoid a lot of the defensive ends and defensive tackles. Decent intangibles. But, he fell off. He had a decent season in 2014, which was his redshirt freshman season. As a sophomore, he kind of dipped a little bit, at least in his percentage. Even if he did still perform well. But we'll see. We'll see what kind of attack LSU goes with this year. They've traditionally been a little bit more of a power attack, and they've got the talent to be able to do that again. They've got Hubbard. They've got, maybe they're not super deep at running back. Yeah, that's interesting. Hubbard's kind of their main threat. And then after him, they've got a lot of, slower guys. So running back's going to be a question for LSU. That could be a spot that keeps them from being a playoff team, especially if Hubbard goes down. I mean, they're going to end up looking pretty one-dimensional. Even their running backs that are slower and stronger, they're still undersized. So yeah, that's going to be a question mark. They can probably run Hubbard and then maybe run Cooper after him, but they just don't have a lot. They don't have much talent there. Luckily, Hubbard and Cooper are decently, they have decent endurance, but running back's really going to be a question mark. Maybe they can run a one-horse system, and Hubbard will have the endurance to last a whole season, getting all of the main reps. But I don't expect that with his size. 5'9", 187. That's a good chance of getting some injury, especially with all those big linemen down there in the SEC. But we'll see. He got some time last season. Didn't do great. 3.5 yards per carry. He's got to tick that up. They're going to want him up over 4.5 yards a carry if they're going to hope to have teams, keep teams honest with the running game. Because if Hubbard can't do it, they'll run into some trouble. Being one dimensional, people are just going to be able to throw diamond quarter at them all day against the pass. And they also have questions at the guard position. They've got a couple definitely decent starters in Banks and Vest, but after that, if any of those guys go down, they're going to be platooning guys, a lot of inexperience, and that's going to be tough when you've already got an undersized back trying to carry a pretty heavy load, because there's not much of anything after Hubbard. Luckily, they do have solid solid tackles, decent depth there, and good centers as well. So as long as Vest and Banks can stay healthy, they should be all right running the ball. But I'd be concerned about, Vest doesn't have the best endurance. Same with Banks. You're probably going to want to platoon some guys behind him. So hopefully that doesn't end up biting LSU, having kind of those holes in the guard position. Tight end, they're solid. They've got one of the best tight ends to come through in David Pacheco. He was recruited by everybody coming in out of high school. He was expected to be good, and he's lived up to expectations for the most part. He had a decent number of drop passes his sophomore season, but let's see if he can pick it up this year. He had a good training camp, good size, strength. He's not the best blocker, but sure-handed, decent speed out of the tight end position. They do also have some question marks. While they have a lot of wide receivers, and they can kind of give you a different receiver for every kind of look, they don't have any besides one that's over 90. Oh wait, they don't have any that are over 90 speed. I'm seeing right. Yep, none over 90 speed. Bruton's good. Johnson's good, but they don't have really a true burner. Bruton can run the routes, and he's agile. I mean, he's their best guy. He's going to get the brunt of the catches. I'm sure of that. But after that, it's kind of, every other wide receiver has some kind of hole in their game somewhere. Whether that be skill, not being able to stay on the field, not quite being as agile, having great hands but not being quick, or being quick but not having great hands. They have, Baker. Baker's great, 6'6", 213. If he can improve his hands, he's a solid prospect to be a great wide receiver for him, especially in short yardage. They're gonna have to stick to a lot of shorter and medium throws, just because they don't really have a lot of true burners. I mean, they've got some guys with some speed, but they don't have anybody above 90, which is a concern. That also, we get into those concerns a little bit looking at their secondary as well. They've got a great, one of the best corners out there in Sacco. Great hands, great tackling, great strength, great size, great agility, just solid guy, great locker room guy. But after Sacco, you got to cover the other side. They've got Segura. I didn't see Segura and White. So they actually do have really good, three deep elite corners, which they're definitely going to need with some of those passing offenses in the SEC. White, Segura, and Sacco are going to get the majority of the reps, I'm sure of. You might see Owen, but Owen, I think, is overrated. He's too slow to really do anything. He's skilled. He can, he runs all of the coverages right. He gets into his spots, but he'll get burned in a long route. If a guy can get past him on a slant route, he's toast. decent hands. So they don't go 4 deep, but they do go 3 deep at corner. Linebacker play, that should be solid for them with Roach, fast, good tackler, good strength. They've got Roach, Lyles, same thing. Good speed, good tackling, good strength, good size. And then Edwin Gladden, solid tackler, great strength, plays the position well, and he's going to give you that senior leadership this season. So, their defense should be pretty solid between the linebackers and the corners. Defensive tackle, they're good and very deep. They can rotate in, 5 guys and not miss a beat. Kind of same with defensive end. They can rotate in 4 or 5 guys and not miss a beat. The strength of LSU is definitely the defense. So hopefully that can help them out with some of their question marks. Like I said, it's going to come down to the run game, whether they can compete in that SEC or end up down with 2 or 3 losses. But they are, their defense, they've got elite players. They've got at least, 5 guys that are going to go into the pro league this season, just on their defense. So they should be competitive just on defensive alone. They can pass the ball. They've got Albert Means. As long as Hubbard can stay healthy, and keep teams honest with a multi-dimensional attack. After Hubbard, I really worry a lot about their running attack. But we'll see how it goes for LSU. So, moving on from LSU, we're going to look at Georgia. So Georgia's coming off, I believe they won the SEC this past season, went to the playoffs. They just got stuck facing Utah too many times. I think they faced Utah both times last season. Yes, they did win the conference last season and made the playoffs. It's Georgia's first time. They kind of popped up. They look to be a team on the rise. We expect them to kind of be a pretty good squad again this year. They had a decent defense, especially against the pass last season. Not so great against the run, but that's usually the strength down there in the SEC. Is the run game. And they pulled out a lot of great games. They just ended up drawing Utah in that playoff, and they don't have quite the talent that Utah's got. So that being said, let's take a look at their roster. Do we expect them to move up this year? Hendon was a good quarterback last season. 30 touchdowns to 1 interception. He should be solid, and he's back again this year. He'll definitely get the majority of the reps. If he goes down, definitely that'll give McClain some opportunity, and he played well. He didn't get any reps last season, but 2 seasons ago he started 8 games, 19 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So it seems like between Hendon and McClain, either of them go down, or Hendon goes down. It looks like McClain will be able to fill in. They are disgustingly solid at running back. They could really line up 5 guys at you and probably not miss a beat. They're all quick, agile, strong. They've really just got solid play at running back, and that might be what carries them to a really solid season. Their guard play, they can go three deep at you, but while they're not the strongest guys at guard, they're going to be steady run blockers. They don't have a lot of decent pass blocking, so I'd expect Georgia to lean more on the running game this season. As looking at their tackles, they've got solid run blocking from the tackles as well, but they do have a good pass blocking tackle in Harder. They could line him up at left tackle in passing situations. Kidd also could play well there, as well as Huerta, and they're all strong. So the tackle plays great. Guard play, they're kind of similar. They go a little bit deeper than LSU, but they don't have guys that really can run block well. Center play, they'll be solid. They've got two deep. They can run at center and be fine. Tight end, they'll be fine. They've got Hutchins, who's great. They've got Hector Davis, who's great. They don't have a lot of depth behind them, but they don't really need it. They don't feature tons of tight ends that often. Wide receiver, they're solid. I mean, they've really got the talent and speed at wide receiver. They've got Mark Johnson, Wim Mackey. Both of those guys are great hands, great speed. So they can feature 2 wide receivers, 3 wide receivers. If you throw in Tijerina, but Tijerina's hands have always been a question mark. Woody might be a little bit better, but they can easily throw 2-3 deep at wide receiver at you. They definitely miss a beat, especially on speed and hands, after their top 2, Johnson and Mackey. Both of those guys should be solid for them again. Mackey caught 36 passes for 580 yards, 8 touchdowns. And Mark Johnson, he is a freshman. Oh, that's right, because I was trying to recruit him at Utah. That's why that name looked familiar. So Mark Johnson, he should come in, and I mean, he's instantly going to be an impact player for him at the wide receiver position. Cornerback play, I mean, they're solid. They're definitely that first layer of talent for Georgia. See, after looking at Auburn, looking at Georgia, and looking at LSU, I mean, I'm leaning a little bit more towards Georgia to take the conference again and maybe be the more talented squad of the bunch. They've just got the frontline starters that, and maybe that second layer of depth that really kind of, I think, just puts it over the top. And they've got the speed. So it's like Auburn and LSU, they've got some talent, but they're missing speed in some spots. Georgia's got the frontline talent. It seems like in all the positions that matter, all the skill positions, they've got a star caliber player pretty much everywhere. Maybe not strong safety. That might be a concern for them. But, Huston's decent in the speed department, even if he's not as agile. Free safety might be their only real question mark. Strong safety, again, they've got another guy that, another couple guys that would start on a lot of teams. they're really excited about this guy Belton that's just coming in. Great size, decent agility, decent speed, decent tackling and strength. Out of the strong safety, he can definitely play in that box quite a bit. And then, they can switch it up a little bit, play coverage a little bit more, maybe with Brad Brown, a little bit quicker. But yeah, they're talented, and I really do like a lot of Georgia's frontline starters. Hendon's not as talented as Means at LSU, but he's got better wide receivers. Better, quicker wide receivers that run better routes, have a little bit better hands. Yeah, so I think, if I was choosing between the three, I was ranking the three out of the SEC that we've looked at so far, I would probably put Georgia 1, LSU 2, Auburn 3. In terms of, having a quick look over their squad. So, yeah, that being said, I think Georgia should be in the playoffs again this season. I'd expect them to. LSU or Auburn, I think it's going to be one of the two of them, but not both that make it in. But, SEC has been known to put 3 teams in the playoffs before, so wouldn't surprise me to see it again. And then, we've got Alabama to worry about as well now that they've got a AD controlling them in Roma Goth. But we'll take a look at Clemson, and then I'm probably going to take a break again because this is taking way longer than I thought. So anyway, looking at Clemson now. Clemson's another squad. They had an AD their first few seasons, and then they were under AI control for a couple seasons, and then they are back to being controlled again. So, I think 2013, 2014, I think they were AI controlled. They won a couple playoff games back in 2010 and 2012. And they should be good again. They've had a talented squad every season. But let's dig into their history and see where they were at last year. They won the Cure Bowl, finished ranked 17th. Top 25, top 20 offense and top 20 defense. But we'll see how they do. They're a good running team, so we expect that to continue. But let's take a look and find out. So quarterback, it's going to be a tough call on who gets that starting job. They've got kind of 3 guys that'll be in the running for it. Just looking at things now, Richards is really talented, accurate, decent arm. He's going to be able to make most of those long throws, but he plays the QB position well, hits his spots, does the dropbacks, makes his reads, and does it all the right way. No funky motion in his arm, nothing like that. So he might get the starting job, but it's hard to say. You've got a couple seniors in Hartwell and Holman. Neither guy got reps last year. Did they start Richards last season? Did he start as no? He got some reps though, but he didn't start. So it's hard to say who Clemson's really going to go with out of those 3, but You're not missing much of a beat between them. They're definitely all good players. Running back, they're going to be solid as well. They're not quite like Georgia throwing out 93 overalls at 5 of them, but they've definitely got speedy, big running backs, strong running backs, and that shouldn't be too much of a question mark for them this season. Line play is pretty decent, especially in the run game, and Clemson likes to run the ball, so it's like, you don't have to worry so much that maybe at guard they're not going to do extremely well pass blocking, but they do have Eugene Stewart, who's strong, even if he is slow, and he's a sure blocker as well. Getting into tackles, they have some better pass blocking tackles, but then they kind of lack run blocking, so they might struggle running on those edges, hitting those off tackle runs this season. Not sure if Clemson likes to run up the middle or to the outsides, but looking at their squad, they've got guards, center position. They can run up the middle. Looks like they might have a little more success running up the middle than maybe those off tackles and outsides. But who knows? I mean, they've got talented running backs with speed that, maybe they just don't even have to worry about that blocking from the tackle position in running situations, and just blow by those DNs. That's all you really got to do. Give them a set. Those tackles are going to give them a second, and then let the running back get by, and maybe that's all that's needed. Wide receiver play, they're going to be solid there again. They've got Marcus Dennis. They've got Daniel Henley. Both solid guys. Lots of speed across the position. That'll bode well for the medium to long passing game. Cornerback play is decent, especially kind of their front line first two. They're definitely pretty solid. Their depth might be a concern at corner, but they've definitely got two solid starters at corner. Linebacker is a bit of a question mark as well. They've got one great one in James Nixon, but then Curtis Roberts, I mean, he's rated pretty high, but he's pretty slow. So that becomes a concern. Not having a lot of depth, especially at corner and maybe linebacker. They've got a lot of guys and a lot of bodies, but can some of these 77s and 79s, can they step up and perform as well as the guys in front of them? Defensive tackle should be pretty solid, but again, it's the depth might be a concern at that position as well. Kind of same with defensive end. They go too high rated, and then they're going to have average play after Smith and Gorman. Free safety, they've got talented guy in Becknell. In fact, I remember recruiting him at Utah as well. Solid player in his sophomore season, coming off 75 tackles, 3 interceptions, 2 sacks, 10 passes defense. Becknell should be a solid player at the free safety position for him. And then after that, I mean, they've got the speed. Lowe or Trujillo, they definitely could fill in, for decent amounts of time at that free safety position. Then they've got Duckworth in the strong safety spot, along with Rife. Both of those guys are solid. One of them will probably get some playing time in nickel and dime coverage, just looking at their lack of depth at corner. Both of these guys probably get some reps in those positions. Then kicking does remain a concern. They're a little bit above average, their kickers, in accuracy, but they don't have the best legs, so they're not going to be able to nail those 50-yard, 45-yarders. Punting should be all right, but not a distance punting, that's for sure. A little more finesse. But Clemson should have a solid squad, especially on offense. I mean, they're definitely elite on the offensive side of the ball. They can line up, on offense. They can line up with the Utahs, with the Florida States. They've definitely got the talent there. But the question becomes, after their frontline starters at linebacker, corner, defensive end, are they going to be able to, if they get by without injuries, they'll be all right. But are they going to be able to go a whole season? I expect that they'll end up with a gap in one of these positions, defensive end, defensive tackle, linebacker, corner, that they're going to have a hard time filling as the season goes on. So that being said, I'm going to wrap up the top 20 or the top 10, and then I'll continue the stream a little later for the rest of the top 25 and the other human teams that are kind of sitting on the edge. So that being said, thanks for listening, those that did, and I'll pop back in and announce when I'm going to jump back in and talk about a few more.